Hi everyone and welcome to 2017. So a happy new year to each and every one of you, and many thanks for popping along and checking out this video, the first of what will hopefully be many on my channel throughout 2017. But yeah, a happy new year to each and every one of you. Now today's video is something different in that it is gaming related, but I'm talking about a book that I got on Christmas Day. Now this book, or encyclopedia I should say, that I got is that of A Gremlin in the Works. Now A Gremlin in the Works, it's written by Mark Hardisty. Is that how I pronounce his name? Hardisty? Mark Hardisty. It's there on the book. I don't know if you're in focus there. But that's Mark Hardisty there. And it's a double encyclopedia, if you will, about Gremlin Graphics. Now, Gremlin Graphics, for me, it brings a lot of fun back because I was only in my early teens when I started playing on my first games on the ZX Spectrum 48K, the old rubber keyboard. I don't know if many of you guys, if you especially younger than me, if you'll know what that is. But yeah, the ZX81, that was the first computer I got, then the Commodore VIC-20, then a ZX Spectrum 48K, and then a Commodore 64. They were the early computers that I used to play on, and basically, you know, we had games such as Wanted Monty Mall and what did we have, like Jet Set Willy, Manic Miners, all those. You know, we had Attic Attack from, I think it was Ultimate Software that produced that game, but they were all iconic games in the 80s nevertheless. And this book, or the double booklet, A Gremlin in the Works, it's a fantastic look back at those days, if you will. Like I said, I was only, what, 12, 13, early 80s. But I used to play what was called, and it still is called, Wanted Monty Mall. Now, Monty Mall it's such a fantastic little platform game. You basically play the role of this little mall that you've got to control on all these different levels, collecting pieces of coal. Now, the game came out, I think it was 83, written by Peter Harrop, and I think it was based on the miners' strike of that time, Arthur Scargill and all that kind of stuff. And I think it was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek little dig at Arthur Scargill and what was going on, like I said, at that time in the 80s. But it's such an iconic game, and even today, you know, people are still playing it. It spawned, I think, 2 other games. I think there was Monty on the Run and Now Feed the Same Monty. I think that were the titles. But they are talked on, written about in this encyclopedia, if you will. Now, what I do like about this booklet, that is the first one, 1983 to 1989. And as you can see, hopefully, I think you might be in shot there. But obviously there's a lot of thank yous and what have you, a lot of credits to people. But it starts off, you know, from the early days. It's got some fantastic graphics, you know, the loading screens at the time of the games. And then there's interviews with the actual original founders of Gremlin Graphics. You know, Peter Harrop, people like that, Ian Stewart. There's you know, interviews upon interviews. Again, some of the original artwork that was on the actual cassettes at the time. They talk about the games, Thing on a Spring. You know, they're just, again, some of the games, some of the boxing games at the time. Fairly simple graphics, but at the time they were groundbreaking. You know, it really is such a good book to have, is this. I mean, this first edition is what, 200 and odd pages long? 295 pages is the first booklet, and I think the second booklet's just as, you know, it's just as long. You've got original art design from Jack the Nipper. I don't know if many of you remember that, but Jack the Nipper here, and then obviously the final game itself, the Nautiometer is it called, I think, or Nautiometer. But yeah, original artwork, and then you've got the final product, Jack the Nipper. Now, how many of you guys will remember Jack the Nipper from its time? Fantastic game, but there's so much nostalgia in this book. There really is. I'm just trying to find the Monty Moore page for you guys. You've got Monty on the Run. I mean, there are some of the levels from another game. You know, such simple ideas at the time, but yet well executed. You know, for those that are into the old nostalgic I should say, games from the 80s, this is a must-have book. It really is. I just love the interviews, and I love the actual background behind how all these games came along. You've got original photographs from, obviously, the Gremlin people at the time. So there they all are, guys. They're the people that we all came to love and remember fondly. Here we go, Monty Mole. And that is the game that I'm such a massive fan of. Monty by Gremlin Graphics. Can you see it there, guys? And there's the famous, if I can find it, the famous opening level. There's your miner, and there's my little Monty. And these are the levels that I'm talking about. The famous Crusher. Who remembers the Crusher? How many times did you get killed by those? You know, there's your levels. You go down. Some fantastic nostalgic games. But Monty Mole, my all-time favourite. It really is, from the 80s. And as I said, you've got an interview with, actually, you know, the guy who wrote it, Peter Harrop. That's all in there. And there he is, the man himself. That's Peter Harrop. And that is the cassette inlay, Wanted Monty Mole. Many of you guys will probably remember that. And who remembers the old ending to Monty Mole? That's the actual poem, if you will, at the end of each level. It's just a brilliant, brilliant book. Then you've got, obviously, the second book, 1990 to 2015. Now, these obviously games are getting a bit more modern now. You know, obviously the graphics are getting a lot better and the gameplay is getting a bit more serious. I mean, again, some of the artwork here for Hogs of War, you know, you can see the difference now and how things are progressing throughout the actual years. But again, more interviews, more artwork. Okay, I mean, there's one there. Hogs of War, the graphics are still a bit pixelated. But again, that is what we all came to love with these consoles. Well, not consoles, but computers in the 80s and 90s. You know, the graphics weren't as sharp as what they are today, like Xbox Ones and PlayStation 4s and what have you. You know, this is what gaming was about in the 80s. Really is some classic games in here. It really is. I mean, you've got to actually get your hands on this book, guys, to appreciate just what games we had. And oh my God, who remembers this one? Any guesses? Well, the clue's down his foot. Zool. Who remembers Zool? Classic game. Lotus Esprit. That's another game. Turbo Challenge Lotus 3. Remember those racing games from the 80s and 90s? Who remembers playing those in the arcades? So, Gremlin in the Works, guys. Seriously, it's brilliant for nostalgia, if anything else. I mean, on the back of a book, you know, it tells us how it all starts straight away. You know, two people, Ian Stewart and Kevin Norburn, opened a small computer shop in Carvey Street, Just Micro, I think it was called. And then obviously it grew to be one of the biggest game developers, probably in the UK at the time, you know, Gremlin Graphics. Gremlin Graphics. But, you know, like I said, it tells a story of early 80s, such as Monty Mole, Jack the Nipper, Lotus Esprit, Turbo Challenge, Actua Soccer. Now, what have we got now? You've got likes of EA Sports, FIFA. You know, but check out the graphics between 80s and what they are today. It's unbelievable, the advancements in what we're getting now for games. But, you know, you've got to go back to the early beginnings of the 80s to appreciate the games of today, because without them, you won't have your games. You won't have your Call of Duties, I wouldn't think. You won't have your FIFAs and your Pro Evolution Soccers. You just won't have anything like that. These are the forefathers, if you will, of modern day games. And 80s, 8-bit and 16-bit games, you just can't find any faults in them. They're very basic but so addictive, and it's the addictiveness that I like more in games. Now, I do like my Call of Duties, I do like my, you know, FIFAs. They are brilliant games to pass the time away, but it's the actual nostalgia, and it's the actual, you know, these platform type games. Chucky Egg, who remembers Chucky Egg? Games like that where you get so immersed in them, you can spend hours and hours and never quite completing them. And when you did complete them, there was a massive buzz about it. And they didn't just take a couple of hours to complete like some games of today do. They used to take days and weeks to master the levels. You know, especially when you had random, you know, crushes like in Monty Mole when they're up, down, down, up, down, down like that, and you just had to time it right to get through them. They were so annoying and frustrating, but you still wanted more, and that is what I loved about the 80s games. So guys, if you've come from the 80s, if you love the old 8-bit 16-bit games. Comment down below, tell me what you thought. What are your favourite games from the 80s and obviously early 90s? I mean, I just loved the 80s. I grew up with it. I used to love programming my own little games. I was never as good as what these guys were, but I used to come home from school, straight on to my old ZX Becky 48K, and I was there with rubber keyboards trying to program the odd game. But yeah, I just loved everything about it. And then obviously we had the magazines, didn't we? We had the Big K magazine. I think it was called Zap. You know, we had all the old nostalgic magazines basically, you know, and in those magazines it showed us how to program simple basic games. It told us all about how to design sprites, as they were called in those days, you know, 8-bit and 16-bit graphics, how to animate them. But that's how we learned, and that is what has stuck with me. I'm in my 40s now and I still look back to those days. They're brilliant, and my wife picked up an absolutely gem here, because this has really taken me back to my early days as a young computer gamer, if you will. Brilliant, brilliant edition, guys. If you can, try and get hold of a copy of this. You won't regret it. Seriously, you won't. So yeah, comment down below, guys. Tell me what your favourite games were from the 80s. Are you still playing them today? Are you like me in your 30s, 40s, and you look back at those days when there's nostalgia and, you know, just remembering coming home and cracking open that cassette and sticking it in, waiting 5-10 minutes just for a game to load, only for it to crash right at the end because you've got a dodgy tape. Who remembers those days? But they were brilliant. They were fantastic days. Comment down below, guys. Tell me what your thoughts are. Tell what your favourite games from the 80s are and what you're playing today. Are you on Xbox Ones, PlayStation 4s, or are you still basically living your childhood? Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you all very soon.